Holidays nale, adu namma GT Holidays da. South India's #1 travel brand.
Ariza, shirts and trousers.
Deepavali collection Kodi, Magachiyum Kodi. The Chennai Silks. Let the celebrations begin.
Hello and welcome to Galattaplus. I'm an OT, hence all this, and I'm also here for a special reason. The person who's been producing all our videos, that is Avinash Prakash. This is his first movie. It's called Naangal. Ask him what is your favorite film on Naangal.
Favorite film Naangal. I like it.
Naangal is an autobiographical film. What made you say, I want to begin my career, my film career, with my own story?
So I was supposed to start a film in 2019, sir.
Right.
But somehow that kept delaying, and then COVID happened. So obviously first one was just chilling. And then I figured clients are slowly cutting out. And then I realized I need to somehow keep myself happy, sir. So what happened was I started going back.
When you say clients, you mean?
So I do ad films. I have a small company. I do ad films and stuff.
Right.
So the clients stopped coming in. So at that point, all I had was time to think. And TV became boring because there was no new content being produced. So I started thinking about what is it that I really want to watch. So first I started watching all the older films. Like Dil Se, Erode, Heram. I started watching all those films which I've always seen. And then I started thinking about, oh, this film I saw it in this theatre, I was here. I started thinking about a lot of things in the past because there's nothing else to do. And just to be happy, I started reading Tintin again, Asterix again, Phantom, Mandrake, Casper. I started reading all these, Richie Rich. And then I started thinking about, okay, I had about 10 years of my life where this is all I kept doing. I read all these comics, I read Hardy Boys, Enid Blyton. So I started thinking a lot about those times, and I kind of realized that I was like, okay, now what is the story I want to say? And then I started dreaming about some idea. I said, okay, it should have a little bit of Casper and Mandrake and Asterix. And I'm like, okay, maybe that is my zone. I have to make adventure films in the future where it's a lot of children film. I started thinking about a lot of children based stuff. And then one day I asked, why am I thinking too much about my childhood? And then I realized the comics led me into thinking about what all happened.
Right.
So when I started thinking about what all happened, there are a lot of memories I kind of suppressed. And when that started coming about, I felt it really had drama, which is what you kind of look when you're writing a story. And somehow I felt that this might be a story which might be worth telling. So I told it to a friend, said this happened. So he kept saying that, hey, you have this, and why are you trying to make other films? So that kind of gave me a little bit of motivation, saying, okay, maybe this is a story. And for the heck of it, because I had no other job, I started writing something. I wrote the first 30 pages. That's all I had written, sir. And I think I shared that with you. And like you rightly said that, I'm getting a lot of moments, but what is the story? Because I had not flushed the story yet. So that was where it was. And then the pandemic got over. I went on to writing other things, saying, I have to make this, I have to make that, I have to make this. I just kept this in the back. And then when this producer had approached me, I said, I'll send you something, read it and give me a call. So I sent him this. He said, Avinash, I'm producing this. When do you want to do it? I said, Ooty is great in Jan, Feb and March. I said, December is the best. He said, can you write it by December? Just for the heck of it, I said, yes, I'll write it by December. So, and then this was sometime in October 18th or 19th.
Of 2022.
And November 16th, November 26th, I finished the screenplay. December 4th, we were here for pre-production. So, I mean, it just happened, and within 2 months, we all ended up here.
And now we are speaking in March. It's the beginning of March. And so you, including pre-production, you're going to finish in another, like what, 4 or 5 days?
3 days, sir.
3 days, yeah. So that's been a very record film, but from the footage that I have seen, it is also not really a, one of those compact films which, people film inside a house so that it can, like it's easy to, it's not one of those films. It's a fairly expansive film.
Lights, sir. These are lights that we have put up. So they switched it off. And Anish was standing here. So I suddenly said, hey, it looks like I'm seeing Devdi here. So I said, okay, let's just switch it off. And we kind of shot with this. This camera is actually able to capture this exposure. Okay. And what we did after that is, we shot this in 8. So when we make it into normal motion, it will become that staccato kind of a thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and like Mental Manadal was done earlier. So this will become like that. So it'll be more, it'll add drama. So all these things are things which are happening there.
Even though this is a story of 3 boys and their parents, or rather of 3 boys, it's not just, there's been a certain expansive thought that you've had. Can you take us through that?
Yes, sir. So because I grew up in Ooty, I grew up in the estates. What I remember, so this story is 3 years of my life, sir. When we were in absolute poverty, but we were living in a 6,500 square feet bungalow, and we had about 5.5-6 acres of estate. So by all the outlook for the villagers and my friends at that point was, Avinash is a very rich kid.
Right.
Because I have a 6,500 square feet bungalow, we have an estate. But the actual truth was, we were actually eating white rice with pickles. That is the only thing we could afford. So when that came into play, I always kept wondering, why do I love Ooty so much? That was my first question. Because any story of mine, sir, I bring in Ooty somehow.
Right.
Without Ooty, if I write, I feel like I've betrayed Ooty.
Right.
And I'm like, why do I like this place? Because I've had only tragedy happen here. I'm not supposed to like this place.
Right.
So one more thing which we interestingly did was, every morning at 4 a.m., because we didn't have water connection in our bungalow, we used to go to the village pond, and my dad said that if you do it at 4 a.m., you will not have crowd. So in Lovedale, in the hills, we went to fill, white 20 liters can of water.
And that's 3 little kids.
3 little kids. What I remember is that I remember the sunrises. I remember how misty it was. I remember how beautiful it was. That beauty has never gone out of my head. So out of all the shit that happened in my life, I also realized there's so much of beauty.
Right.
So one thing I was very clear is, I know that I can't hire the entire Charing Cross and Ooty to shoot a sequence. But I know that if I show an estate, there's only one way to show it, that is widescreen. So that I was very clear. And also because there is an Ooty connection to the films like Dil Se, all these Rajiv Menon's Insara Kanava. So I keep watching these films every other day. One thing I realized is it was all widescreen. And because I learned film, I learned cinema in film school, when film was still a thing.
Right, right.
So I learned my editing in the cutting machine. We have to check cut list.
Like a Steinbeck.
Yeah, we didn't edit in Steinbeck. The final check was done there.
Ah.
So I have to mark the cut list. We'll have to go to the film lab. At that point, our fascination was, if you used spherical lenses, which is now the most popular lenses, the film comes like this, 16:9. And then for us, 16:9 was TV. And if you say anamorphic, it is CinemaScope. Big films are made in anamorphic. So that was a silly fascination. So what, I started seeing everything in wide screens. And there was one visual I had, the 3 children are standing in a shot. It is extremely a wide shot. And I said, somehow it came to my mind that it is an anamorphic film. So that was even before the producer came on board, I felt that if I shoot it in anamorphic, it will be great. So because I got that, and I also realized the film is set in from between 98 and 2000.
Right.
So I can't just keep it in a house. I mean, it would have been easier for the production, but we decided early on that let's go and find the most expensive house, see how to budget it,
Right.
and then bring it on board. So when I came into this house, this was this is not how big my house was. But when I came in, I kind of saw the visual that there's a lot of wooden work, a lot of darkness, and we never had electricity. So I felt this house might do justice to how we were living.
Right.
So that way, the house gave me that large scale expanse which I wanted.
Right.
And I was just lucky that I landed in this place, because I can keep the frame anywhere.
Right.
And it'll still look grander than wherever I can go and keep, even if I pay lakhs and lakhs. And second is, we were lucky, we were just walking down the road. We found a beautiful estate, and the owner was so kind. Anytime we call him, he just take the estate. And that estate is so beautiful, and there is 75 acres of land, which is only owned by 4 planters who have promised that we will never build a guest house here. They have only their houses here. So naturally, we again got a large landscape which we could again use wide shots.
Yeah.
So, and also one thing that we were very conscious is never go to any place which has been shot by some other film.
Ah.
So there are some popular locations, like there's one location which Kapoor and Sons were shot. That's also because that is like it's a beautiful film and it's about family. I said, okay, that is for Kapoor and Sons. But all the other locations, I knew that this film was shot here, this film was shot. I said no to that. So we started going around Ooty for we had 45 days of pre-production. 25 days we went all around. So first property we saw was Rani Bangla. We saw 15 other properties. And we finally decided, let's come back here. So that naturally gave us that widescreen. And an anamorphic lens, the thing is, it makes it very soft, sir.
Yeah.
The focus is, it's not as sharp as the new lenses. But it also, and what the problem with anamorphic is, even if I compose a close-up for you, I'll have so much of white space.
Yeah.
So if I don't compose you well enough, it's going to be like blank, 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 and it's just a flat film.
There's going to be a lot of empty
spaces.
Yeah.
So to help us with that, the Rani Bangla made sure that you can't have empty spaces, because if I compose it, something will be there.
Right.
So,
So that's what made you decide on these wide.
yeah.
Basically, it's a memory. But one thing is, see, when it comes to making a first-time film, a lot of people out there, if you read screenwriting books or if you listen to advice by directors, they say, write what you know. So obviously you've done that, right? So that's there. But there is also this peculiar situation of the market where most first-time filmmakers try to get a star or a story that is mass or whatever it is you want to call it, something that will go and reach the audience in a certain way. So was there any, so you wrote what you knew, you filmed it the way you wanted to, so that's great. I mean, you got what you wanted. But was there also a kind of fear at any point that I'm making something so personal and this is my first film, I don't have an identity yet. How is this film going to get across? Should I do something else instead?
Like I just wrote it and I didn't really think too much about it. And my friends started reading it. They started saying that it has something that we have not read before or seen before. And because I told the producer I'll finish the script, I was writing and I wrote the interval sequence, which is major sequence when the dad and the son has a fight, which I kind of showed it to you there. When I wrote that sequence and when I decided this will be the midpoint of the film, I got like a confidence which said that people might like it.
Right.
So that is one side. And second is when I spoke to the producer and he told me one thing which gave me the confidence that okay, maybe I've done something right, is he said, Avinash, make the film that you want to make. I'm giving you something even better. I don't want 1 rupee from this film. Just make it.
Wow.
So when he told me this, I'm like, where am I going to get an opportunity where I can make the film I want, the way I want?
And this gentleman's name is?
His name is Mr. Raju, GVS Raju. And he's just started a company, a film production company called Kala Bhaveshri Creations.
Okay.
And I'm just lucky to be the first guy to make a film for them.
Okay.
And he's been very sweet, sir. He's been very sweet in giving us everything that we have asked. And we put a budget. It's not like he told me that I'm only going to give you this. We put a budget. He never took out anything. So that also gave us the confidence that, because see, he's a man who's done a lot of work. That also gave us the confidence, okay, we are on the right path.
Right.
And I consciously made sure that my budget was very limited. And I knew that if I go to Ooty, if I'm able to find 3 or 4 locations, nobody's going to know what the budget is.
Right.
We can kind of shoot it the way we want to shoot it. And naturally what happened was, because he gave me that confidence, every decision that we have taken in the film is only for the film. And it's not because I feel an egoistic instinct. It's not that. Whatever the film demands, we submit ourselves and saying, okay, this is what the film is asking.
Right.
Like I'll give you a small example. So like, see, me and my brothers, it's a film is about me and my brothers.
Yeah.
I don't remember too much of happy moments. And somehow I started feeling that the film is getting darker. And I started feeling bad, or I started feeling a little weird. So I started consciously writing scenes which were a little light-hearted. So when we found the children, when we were filming with the children, they are naturally, so they have a different life. So
Right.
they bring so much of humor. It might all be just fart jokes and silly comedies. But they were laughing so beautifully that I'm like, I wanted this in my childhood. Now what do I do? Bring it in the film.
Right.
So it was not improv in the sense that we are going away from the script, but I'm just taking whatever they are giving me.
So in a way, you're kind of reliving your childhood, but also kind of saying, having a what if my childhood had been this way? So it's a bit of both.
Yes.
Okay.
So that was a discovery process during filming. When they made a very silly joke, I said, "Can you give me this? Let's design a scene." So when that improv started happening, and they were so beautifully forming into my improvisations, and we never changed the filming method, we never changed the design of the film, but somehow it fit in. So when we were able to get all these things in, I just thought there are a few additions I want to make. Like, I come from a broken family. So when my mother left home, when my dad and mom, they had an argument, and my dad sent my mother home, we were sleeping.
Right.
That's like one of the biggest regrets that I have. Like that, we didn't even go and ask my mother, why are you leaving? We didn't have the time, and because we were such a submissive kind of a family, you don't have the rights to ask him anything. So you shut up, you just listen to what my dad says. So that is what we had written, and because the actress really did a beautiful job in the first sequence, which was a very violent sequence of her getting slapped, and she was crying outside. So I was hearing her cry from the headphones, and I went, I asked what happened. She's like, why did this lady have to be in this house for such a long time? I'm like, I've never thought of that, because for me this is assumed.
Right.
My mom, she was there, this happened, and she left.
Yeah.
But when she asked me that question, saying, why did she be here for so long? I'm like, shit, why didn't I ever ask my mom, why did she stay back?
Did you ask her?
No. It becomes a little weird because
now during this shoot you are staying with your mother.
I'm staying.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of conversations, and I think it's kind of opened a lot of unpleasant memories for her. But I mean, I think we both came into an agreement that at some point we'll have to accept what happened.
But did she ever say why you, at any point did you, your mother or your brothers, or did any of them say, why you digging up all this shit again? We buried it all. Why you raking it up all over again?
They were not so explicit, but my twin, Ambrish, when he read the script, he got up, he looked at me and said, what happened? He said, yo, Baimar kya? Then I knew that, okay, there, because my twin is a very weird character where he'll not be diplomatic. Okay, camera nalla irundhirukkalam. I know that the film is bad. Even my ad films and stuff, he'll be very open. And I said, okay, he's telling me that he's remembering my father so much. I'm like, okay, maybe it has. So my elder brother, he reads like everything in the world. He was a little like, how is this going to come out? How is this going to come out? How is this going to come out? At one point I told him, I'm just doing the story. Don't worry, it's not about you or me, it's about us. Just leave it, let me write it.
Right.
I mean, it was that. My mother, it was very interesting. Like, I assumed that she's going to scold me. She's going to say, who are you to do this? I assumed she's going to do that. The best part was during those 3 years of, early years of their separation, and when we started going into this zone where we were doing all the household works and a lot of non-children things, that is cleaning house, cooking, eating garbage food. The weird thing is my mother never knew this all happened to us.
Oh.
So she knew that my father was a strict person. She never knew it was abusive like this. That for me was a surprise. So what happened was, from then, during pre-production, I started talking to her a lot, just to see what was her side of the story. And it was very interesting to know that like there were multiple parts, multiple stories happening, and I only know one small bit.
Right. And your point of view, basically.
My point of view.
Yeah.
So I stuck to that, sir. I decided, okay, I'm only going to tell my point of view. I'm not going to judge my father or my mother, because I don't know. Now I don't have the maturity, but at some point when I ask him, then I'll be able to form a story which has everything.
Right.
So I decided, let me just stick to whatever I want, but make a little bit of small embellishments which I might not know.
Right.
So there is one event which happened in my life, where something happened and I just uttered some random word and I left. I heard my father crying out loud, but I had a cricket match. This is not in the film because very difficult, too much of things to kind of fit it in. But I also knew that he was not a very like, oh, I'm the 6 foot tall military kind of a guy. He was not that. He was that for us. He was not exactly that. And also what happens is, when you are slowly growing older, Of course, where he was when the story happened, I still have 12 more years to go.
Right.
But because I run a company, and if suddenly it is taken away from me, and if they say that I have to go and start fresh, start from a small job, I might start, I might, I mean, I kind of understand where that feeling is,
Right,
you know,
right.
when you lose everything. So I started slowly empathizing with my parents. Now that was a weird feeling because that started happening before the shoot. Now I'm like, what do I do with these feelings? So what I started doing was, when we started filming the sequences, the actors gave so much of empathy, the children brought in so much of empathy. When I felt the empathy was right, I kind of took it. So the guy who plays Rajkumar, the fictional father figure, is Mr. Abdul. Very unique guy because this is his first film. When I met him first in my life, 10 years back, the first thought when I met him is, he's exactly behaving like my father. So when I was casting, I called him for saying, are you free? Will you act? He said, see, I'm a doctor now. I'm in Hyderabad. I have a clinic. I said, good. Will you act? He said, I have not thought of it. I said, fine, you come. So he came in. He just did one shot. I knew that he's going to be the father. But because I had to show others, I filmed a couple of more sequences. But I knew the first... I actually knew he's going to be the father when he shaved and just gave me the mush. So he brought in a lot of empathy. Because it's also interesting because he comes from a beautiful family. So he has that empathy and he brought it.
Right.
Now I can't take it to the family, but what I can do is I can take it to how the father interacts with his employees, with his businesses.
Right.
Or when his dreams shatter, how is he going to kind of react? So I brought in those empathy there. I brought it there so that I'm kind of trying to, so what I'm doing is, like, one, I'm reliving my childhood, and second, I'm kind of trying to get rid of certain scars and patterns I fall back into. Third, I'm trying to understand who are my parents.
Right.
It's not like I'm going to do anything great with it, sir, but I'm trying to understand what is my father. You know, why did a man go like this? And who is my mother? Why have I not had a bond with her earlier? Now I'm staying with her for the past 3 months. Now I know where she gets, when she is happy, when she's sad, when she's tired. So I started asking myself, okay, why haven't I done this before? Why did I not do this?
Right.
So, I mean, I'm not going to take any drastic step to go and make sure that I become the bonded son or something. But these questions I try to answer to the film.
Right.
So that I somewhere kind of say, okay, this is what it was.
So this has been a weirdly therapeutic journey for you, and I personally cannot wait to see this film because I've heard bits and pieces of this story even before you showed me the 30 pages of the screenplay. So we've talked about a lot of the stuff. So, you know, now that you've completed a first film, I'm not asking you from a point of expertise, but simply from your experience of making this film, what would be your advice to anybody trying to make their first film today?
So one thing that I brought in to this film, which I thought would never help me when I started, was I started a company when I was 23 and a half, sir. So what happened was, because I had to survive, I learned all the things myself. I had to do the camera, I had to do the lighting, I had to do everything myself. So what happened was, that experience kind of gave me a push that if something happens, I can always manage.
Right.
I had that confidence, sir. And what I did with this film, I'm shooting it myself, I'm also editing the film myself. So that gave me a freedom to go and experiment. So which is what, so like Praveen and Raghav were helping me with the shoot. Once we go back to Chennai, I'm going to tell them, we have a camera in the office, we have lights. I want you to go and experiment. So that's something that my producer gave me the freedom, saying, do what it is. This happened because of the 10 years of me doing corporate films, ad films.
Right.
I did it because I didn't want to go and join anywhere. So one thing which we are going to do with my team here is not think too much about what is the budget of the film, who is acting in it, how are you going to scale it, how are you going to mount it, but saying with whatever little that we have, let's try to scale it up as big as possible.
Right.
So that's something I think is the most important thing. Instead of getting scared and saying, I don't have this, or say let's go and make it as wide screen as possible in that sense.
Right. Yeah, and I find that interesting because where the stumble happens for most first time filmmakers is getting that one hero to commit to it, because we are very hero driven culture, and you've kind of bypassed that completely, and you decided, I'm going to make, I won't say it's a niche film, because these emotions are like very universal emotions. So it's not like you're taking a very unknown subject and making a movie. I think it's a fairly universal subject, but I guess what you mean by niche is that it's not like a mega production like that. So yeah, so thank you for sharing all this with us. And I feel very strange saying this because we've been working together for so long, and but I do wish you all success. But I think what I really wanted you to say in this interview is that it is possible to kind of make a very, very personal movie and show to the world and say, this is who I am, instead of trying to think of the audience and say, this is the guy I want you guys to think who I am. You know the difference, right? So I think that way, I hope the film comes out well. I kind of imagine that this is also going to be a little therapeutic for you. It has been, and it's going to be. Nice. All the best, and thank you for talking to us.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for coming, sir. Thank you.
Holidays nale, adu namma GT Holidays da. South India's #1 travel brand.
A riser, shirts and trousers.
Deepavali collection Kodi, Magachiyum Kodi. The Chennai Silks. Let the celebrations begin.